We're doing amazing.
Yes, we're live.
We're live.
You know what? Here the dogs are. May not be cats, but the dogs are barking.
Yay!
Because they know we're live.
Yeah.
They're excited. They're celebrating.
They are. So we've been joined by off-screen dogs here
Yay!
at Other People's Books, our first edition of 2022.
Woohoo!
I'm Suleikha Snyder, writer of contemporary and paranormal romance, and here are my two co-hosts. Please introduce yourselves.
I'm Marie Piper. I write American historical romance.
I'm Marissa. I do not write books. I just read them.
Yay!
Tell them hello.
Yeah, and I sell them too.
Yes.
Yeah. But I do not write. I tried once. Well, young authors, you always do those.
But your job is equally, if not more important, because you help put us out there for everyone to read. Marissa owns Love Sweet Arrow, and we are usually in store, but it's cold out here in Chicago, so we're all doing this from home.
Apparently, it's super icy outside.
Yeah,
this is what I've heard. Everybody's falling on the sidewalk, so stay inside and read a book today.
Yes. Read Ice Planet by. I was going to say it's an ice planet, so read Ice Planet Barbarian.
Read Ice Planet Barbarian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. It's like you said earlier. She's a main character, and she wants everyone to hear her.
Yes.
What are ladies' book recs?
Anything with a dog on the cover.
Deal.
And also, she is accepting applications to put her on the cover. I think there's a book with a dachshund in the title coming out, and she wants to know why she's not on the cover of that.
Fair. She's not.
She needs better representation, I think, to get. Yeah.
All right. So, what have we all been reading besides books with dogs on the cover?
I homeschool my son, and I gave him a nice long winter break because of pandemic and everything. And then I took a winter break too. So I did a whole bunch of reading this month.
Oh my.
So much. And I'd like to thank Love Sweet Arrow, because this whole stack I'm looking at all came from you guys, various ways, in the mail and in person and all sorts of things. My favorite thing I read, though, Marissa hand sold me this book in the store. This is Kate Bateman's The Princess and the Rogue, which Marissa sold to me as the one where the princess eats her diamonds. So it does. Okay, so if you loved Anastasia, the movie, this is your book. She is a Russian princess. She has to pretend she's not. There's a dashing Bow Street runner who's helping her. She speaks Russian, obviously, and so she's posing as like a companion to a dowager. And he needs someone who speaks Russian, so she helps him translate, and there's treason and spies and a grand reveal and a ball, and she does in fact eat her diamonds.
Does she pass them?
Okay, so you don't see that on page, but there is a discussion of how that will happen. So this was just wonderful, and it was just terrific, and I'm so glad that I read it.
Awesome. Yeah, you had me at Bow Street Runner and Anastasia. So.
Right? Yeah, no, big Anastasia energy here.
Yeah,
this was great. So, woot.
So, the first book of the year that I read.
Just waiting me up.
Oh, okay.
My mom just texted and said she can't see my face because the sun. Sorry.
You shine as bright as the sun, Marissa.
You gotta love when your mom texts you about how you look on Zoom. That is some serious mom energy, mid-show or whatever. Yeah. She's like,
don't slouch, send. Ugh. Hello, Roseanne. Hello, Roseanne.
Yeah. Hi, Mom. Hi, Roseanne.
Hi, Mom.
My mom is not watching, thank goodness. So I know we promised last year to stop talking about The Widow of Rose House, but
Never.
It was, in fact, the first book I read this year. I did a reread because I needed some comfort. So I reread this copy of The Widow of Rose House that I bought from Love Sweet Arrow. And really, it was just what I needed. It's a perfect Gothic romance, a wonderful debut. Alva Webster is such a strong heroine, and Sam Moore is the most cinnamon roll absent-minded professor hero. You could ask for hearts. We all love it. So that was a really nice way to enter 2022 for me. I also finished If You Love Something by J.C. Ellis, which is a male-male romance that I think I recommended 2 episodes ago, about ex-husbands who have to sort of pretend to still be married and falling back in love because one of them's grandmother's will is in peril, and she wants them to inherit. And there's like an evil uncle who, is scheming to get all the money for himself. So Deshaun and Malik must come back together to fall in love and also make their dying grandmother happy. And there are really cute dogs in it. They each have a dog.
Okay.
So like
dog alert.
Corey and Bruno, and their like little buddy comedy going on in the background is kind of hilarious because I think one's a mastiff and I think one might be a smaller pit bull. It's just, I don't know. I just appreciate it. I've gotten better about animals in romance. I used to be completely anti, and I think maybe it's the pandemic wearing me down where I'm like, don't give me all the puppies.
Yes. Love it.
So yeah, there's a secondary dog story going on there too. The whole thing is delightful. Grandmothers, dogs, exes falling back in love. And baking in restaurants. They work in restaurants.
Great.
So yes, If You Love Something by J.C. Ellis. And
food and dogs?
And dogs.
Nice.
And The Widow of Roadhouse. I mean,
oh my God, write that book.
The Widow of Roadhouse is a completely different story.
Please write The Widow of Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
And then you can talk about it and then like slip and say Rose and then go back to
exactly. It's like a never-ending loop.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, if I ever write about a haunted roadhouse with a widowed proprietor. Okay, that's Marissa, great. What about you? What have you been reading?
I've actually been able to read, which is really nice. I read The Duke Heist and The Perks of Loving a Wallflower by Erica Ridley. I kind of like zoomed through those. I'm super into the whole like little family that they, even though like we don't ever get to see Bean on page, but like I just kind of love the idea of like this wealthy single man just like, I'll take you, I'll adopt you, I'll take you, let's all, and then the whole Robin Hood aspect of it too, like they have the planning parlor and then I really like literally like every time they plan something, they have to go to the planning.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I also I got an arc of Camilla Knows Best, and that also has a dog on the cover and multiple dogs on the story. One named Potato.
I was raving about Potato last month, remember?
I read about Potato.
I love Potato, and I love the fact that he starts to answer to Potato. And they're like, what if someone else wants to name him something else? She's like, no, Potato's his name.
Potato's his name, right?
And I really never really liked Emma. I'm just gonna say, like, I tried to read it once and I found her completely annoying and irritating. And then I watched Clueless and I loved it. And this had more of like the Clueless feels. And I was like, but I understand why she thinks that, like, I understand why she match makes. It's not just like, oh, I'm just gonna do this. I really like that one, and it's not out yet, but you should pre-order it.
Yes, it's out in March, I believe. And yeah, I had the same reaction, I think, in our December episode where I said that it reminds me more of Clueless than it does of Emma. And again, I praised Potato as well. And it's just, I think it's one of the best books of 22 so far that I've read. And I might be a little biased because Farrah's a friend of mine, but she also writes great books. So
right.
I mean,
Why not both?
Why not both? Right.
Yeah. I mean, you could be a great friend and also amazing writer.
Yes, precisely. So yeah,
Yeah.
Going back to what you said about like almost found family and like
Yeah.
building a family, 2 amazing books that I read this past chunk of time were both found family things. And I keep thinking that right now I want my reads to be like as far away from reality as possible and like about community.
Yeah.
I keep loving books about community right now. So I'm gonna do 2 X. Julianne Long's After Dark with the Duke. So this series, The Palace of Rogues, is really, it hits my heart. It is the Grand Palace is a boarding house basically for like weirdos and disgraced people.
Oh, is this the one where the wife and the mistress are running it together?
Yes, it is. This is the 4th book in that series. The first book is Lady Daring Takes a Lover, and it's just such a like Agatha Christie whodunit collection of weirdos in a house and something's happening. But this is the 4th book, and it just came out. And she is a disgraced opera singer. 2 men had a duel over her, and now she's disgraced and no one will hire her anymore. And he is an incredibly noble duke. He's like the kind of duke who's at the boarding house writing a book about how noble he is. Like he's impossible. And of course, she wants to learn to speak Italian so she can sing opera better. And it's like madcap and there's weirdos all over. And it's this nice, safe place of this house. And she gets us, and one person wants to hire her for an opera and they're trying to figure out what it's about. And they think they have her playing a lobster. Like it's just bananas the whole time. And I loved it. Yeah. Like they're literally spend a whole scene going, will I be singing the role of a lobster? I don't know what this is. Like very relatable issues. And then I got from a friend, I got a Love Sweet Arrow surprise box this month, which was super nice. And it contained a cosmic cactus candle, which smells delicious. And Proper Scoundrels by Ali Theron.
Okay.
Which is in a standalone, this is a standalone spinoff of the Magic in Manhattan series, which Spellbound is the first book. Mm-hmm. And everyone is buzzing about Spellbound. But this is really fun. This reminded me of the Jen Bennett Roaring 20s series.
Oh, yeah, which I know.
And that it's like that historical paranormal where the world is the same. They just did World War I, but some people have magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's male between a grumpy lord and a kind of like sunshine paranormal dude who like loves stray kittens and just has these incredible powers. And it's got like, so it's grumpy sunshine. It's got forced proximity. Like the Lord has to stick close to the paranormal guy. So he's kind of masked and hidden. Mm-hmm. And it's just wonderful. And everyone has magic. And it's also very found family. Cause like by the end, it's a whole gang of weirdos saving the world.
I love that.
That is true. And it reminded me also of a KJ Charles book with the sort of sexy banter and the sexy times. So Proper Scoundrels. Loved.
I like my scoundrels improper.
Improper scoundrels.
Improper scrap. I also read a it was a romance. No, it was a love story. It was not a romance because there's not really a happily ever after. Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. It's beautiful. It's set in Mexico and Southern California. Historical fantasy. Delves deep into Mayan mythology. And since one of the protagonists is a Mayan god of death, you can't really have a happily ever after there because he's got to go back and be the lord of the underworld. You know,
I mean, fair. Yeah.
So, and she, the heroine Cassiopeia is awesome, but she also finds her own happy ending in terms of like embracing life but they do fall in love and there's like a heartbroken love story in there, but he's like, very broody but you get to watch him sort of fall for her because he didn't really understand humans. And then you kind of watch him be like, oh, I kind of like this human person I'm hanging out with.
She's such a great writer too.
She is.
We talk about Mexican Gothic all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And this is up there for me too. Part of me does wish she could have ended up with the Mayan god guy, but he has to be on Earth. He has to be down there doing his job. It's just...
There are logistics issues.
Issues.
Yeah. They could have made her a goddess at the end. And then...
Maybe. But she wanted to go drive cars. She really she wants to drive an automobile. That's like one of her like wishes because she comes from like the Yucatan. And I will say she ends the book driving a car. So
Nice.
she got her happy ending.
Good for her.
Good for her.
Yeah.
But speaking of fantasy romances and historical fantasy, you were gonna ask about?
Oh, Miss Suleikha, Miss Marissa, can you help me with Rex? So all I have done in the past few days is fall in love with The Witcher season 2. It's all I care about. And I want to chase that high with some like fantasy romance. So I love the C.L. Wilson Weather Mages of Mistral series, which is not finished. And I need the 3rd book to come out so bad. But I am looking for like high fantasy books, with that have chase. So what do you have any recommendations for me? Because I'm writing it down.
With like growly dudes who bathe gratuitously.
Yeah, that's sort of like that sort of Aragorn thing, like I have a sword, I'm grumpy, there's monsters, probably journeys, quests.
I think Geralt bathes more than Aragorn ever did.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. He's always like popping into some, temple somewhere. So
he's always in bathtubs. Whenever I see screen caps, I'm like, does the man do anything besides bathe?
Those things. And then if you murdered things and you're all sweaty and bloody, I too would want to bathe immediately. So
right.
I had read, so I'm there's a C.L. Wilson book that I haven't read called Lord of the Fading Lands that I looked up, but it looks like it's hard to get. So I'm going to go see if I can hunt that one down.
I would recommend Jeffy Kennedy's 12 Kingdoms series and the connected Uncharted Realms. It starts with the book, The Mark of the Tala. And it's just an awesome high fantasy series with, I think, a different couple in every book, but it has its own world, its own high fantasy world and different couples and very angsty. And there's magic involved and political skullduggery and beings with shape-shifting powers. Really enjoyable. And since she's got so many of those books in those series, it'll take you a while to run out.
Good. That's good. That's also very good.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Cool.
I know Milla Vane, I think, has those barbarian books, the Ash and Blood and stuff. Ash and Blood and stuff.
Yeah.
Milla Vane.
Bloody hand jobs.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's all I know about them is if there's ash, blood, and bloody hand jobs.
Yeah.
That's probably where I should start then, right? Like that sounds like the Cool. Well, thank you.
And and of course I gotta recommend, I think there's significantly less bloody hand jobs, but Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, which is FF, but also high fantasy with a strong romantic thread. It's an ongoing series, so there's no HEA or anything yet. But the 2nd book, Oleander Sword, comes out this year. And again, it's a lot of magic systems and political machinations, and these 2 very different but awesome women who are slowly falling in love as they navigate this world and the politics of the country.
Cool.
And they're all brown, which is also great.
Because high fantasy is a very white world.
Very white world.
Super white. So white. Yes. So cool. I will note all of those and then go in pursuit and report back what I find.
I would say it's kind of more on the May Peterson's series.
Oh yes,
that's really good. It starts with I can't think of the first one, but the Calyx Charm was the most recent one.
Was it like something chaos? No, I don't know. Lord of something.
Heartbeat.
Lord of something.
Lord of the Last Heartbeat. Right. I was like,
yeah.
Dance? No.
Yeah. And it's each book I think is a different couple. And cool. Then I felt like that, like it's a completely like original idea and world. Yeah. And I really
May's amazing. And I've heard great things about that series as well. It's from Karina, and very good.
Cool.
And let's see. So we've got a whole year of reading other people's books ahead of us.
Oh my gosh, right?
right?
Do you have any reading? I don't know. Do you do resolutions? Do you set reading goals? Any of those things? So I last year did so I switched over from Goodreads to the Storygraph, and I like it a lot better. But there, you can do a reading challenge in the Storygraph, same as you can in Goodreads. And I did 100 books as my goal last year, and I overshot that. But this year, I'm going to go easier on my just goal and just read what I want and not try to push myself because, you know, the world. So if I only read like a dozen weird fantasy books, bring it on. So
yeah.
Do you guys have any solutions?
Yeah, I informally sort of track it monthly on my blog on suleikhasnyder.com, and I'll like do a monthly roundup of whatever I've read, you know, mostly frontlist books, but then I'll slip in a couple of backlists. And honestly, it's been very stressful because I push myself to read mostly new releases. And then, so this year I'm actually going to give myself permission to read more, reread more, to read more backlists, to not feel the rush to read things right before or after they come out. Right. Because books are still always going to be there, and it shouldn't be a race, you know, or a competition. I did manage to read 100 books last year. I got 6 in that last week of December because I was like, I need to get to 100. I'm almost there. Yeah. And I did. I barely made it, but I don't want to pressure myself like that again. You know, so I want my books to mean something rather than the number to mean something. Yeah. You know,
Marissa, do you like, I assume, as I don't know anything about running a bookstore, but I assume you have like a mountain of ARCs.
Yeah. And actually I was hoping to catch up on them, but I misplaced my iPad until this morning.
Oh, no.
But I mean, I did read Camilla Knows Best. So but I gave Mom permission to download the Kindle app and log into mine. So I told her that she's only allowed to read ARCs and not other things. But that way, even if I don't get to something, then she will hopefully get to it, especially since I misplaced my iPad for a whole month.
Does that mean like if she reads something you're reading, it's going to ruin where you are in the book if she uses your app?
We try not to read books at the same time.
That makes
sense. If she's in the middle of something, I'm like, okay, I can't read that.
Okay, right. That makes sense.
Would just be chaos.
That would be so chaotic. You're like, wait a second, I was on chapter 7. How is she on chapter 14?
Yeah. Right. And that's why it's easier for her not to read like books that I'm like reading, because I will reread and or I'll be like stuck on a page. I'm like, I'm going to get back to that a year later. And I'm like, okay, don't read the non-arcs. If I like DNF an arc or whatever, I'm like, if I can't find it, I'll just, you know what I mean? Like it's not as big of a deal, but a book that I treasure.
Do you read do either of you read multiple books at once, or do you tend to read like one book at a time?
I will read one book for myself at a time, but I'm also always reading one thing out loud with my kid at a time. But usually romance and middle grade are so different that it's not overlapping. I tried to read multiple books at one time once, and my brain does not work like that. And I would like set one down and lose it. And so one book at a time.
I overshot last week, or the last week of December, because I was trying so hard to finish. So I was reading like 3 books at the same time in my Kindle. And I was like, I don't need to do that again. But I am currently reading 2 or 3 books at once again. So apparently I'm not learning anything. I'm reading Devon and Chris Plan a Wedding by Chensia Higgins, which comes out on the 25th of this month, which, as the title implies, Devon and Chris are planning a wedding. It's another queer book, female romance. They are part of a reality show where you have to put together a wedding in 6 weeks and surprise your family and convince them that you and this stranger are actually dead seriously engaged and getting married.
Oh my gosh.
It's
stressful.
It's very stressful. And there's a lot about like, Devon isn't fully out to her family and wants to use the show to come out. Chris is actually looking for long-term love, and obviously they spark right away, but there's all this other stuff around. It's really lovely. Really enjoying it. Chensia's voice is so good. Like I've been laughing my ass off. And I'm also simultaneously reading an old horror book that was reissued, Speaks the Nightbird by Robert R. McCammon. And it's like heavy, like really heavy prose. And like he describes what everybody's wearing, like he's writing a Regency. I'm like, wow. And it's actually set during like the Salem witch trials era, the 1600s. So you would actually like it.
Yes, I would.
And then I'm reading 5-Day Reunion, which is a Harlequin special edition by Mona Schroff, the arc of that. Yeah. It also comes out at some point this month or next month, which is two exes who have to pretend to still be married because his mom didn't bother telling their grandfather from India that they got divorced, because you can't, divorce, don't tell anyone in the family. So ailing grandfather has no idea his grandson is divorced, and it's the sister's wedding, and he and his ex have to like pretend. And I'm only on day 1 so far, but it's not going so well for them. They're like, what? Because it got sprung on them.
Mm-hmm.
Like his wife shows up, the ex shows up at like the first event of the wedding, because Indian weddings are huge.
Yeah.
And he's just like, great. She's like, let's go see your grandfather, honey. And he's like, oh, like
awesome.
Yeah, so I'm reading 3 very different books at the same time.
Those are very different books, so that shouldn't be too hard to keep,
So I guess that helps too, if you're reading very different books at once.
Right. They're pretending to be married during a Regency horror reality show. Like, yeah.
Okay, now I want someone to write that.
Yeah.
I really want Regency horror now. That's what I want.
Regency horror, yeah.
Regency horror romance. Like Pride, Prejudice and Zombies, kind of, I guess. Like something like that. Yeah.
With a wedding involved.
With a wedding. Yeah.
And a reality show.
And a reality show somehow in the Regency. Great.
Because it's a reality show about the Regency horror.
Right. Yes. It's like what's that show on PBS where they all go pretend to be like
in a castle, like the house.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
And
right,
then
all these ideas down.
Someone like be like shamed for sleeping with someone. I'm like, did we have to get that
accurate?
Like that's too accurate. Like that's
like she had to leave.
Oh
no. Did they also get yelled at for like
sleeping with the Lord of the House or something? And it's like,
did they like yell at people for like flashing their ankles or what? Like, how would that even work?
They had to use like the deodorant and everything so they like be rubbing garlic in their armpits or something. It was like really.
That sounds very irritating. Like that just doesn't sound pleasant.
So
for many reasons.
It's it was on PBS, right? Is what you're saying? This I might have to check it out and be horrified.
Yeah, it was weird, and
that is weird.
Yeah.
So somebody write us a Regency horror dating romance comedy, something. Yeah,
a horror romance Regency comedy with a wedding.
Okay, thanks, and then take our money. Take our money.
What are you all reading, or what's on your TBRs?
Well, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I finally started the 3rd in the N.K. Jemisin Broken Earth trilogy.
Nice.
And immediately, like, I couldn't, like, I had to put it down. But I started it yesterday, and I read like 100 pages, and I'm like, why did I wait until the day before I had to go back to work to start? And I think, like, it's heavy, but it's, I don't know, like, when I think about like original world building, I'm just like why are we still reading Henderson the Rain King? Like, why can't we be reading, like, if you want, like, I don't know, it really, like, all the multiple time, like, going back and character voices and everything, and now we're from the perspective of one of the Stone Eaters, and I'm like, and they had a flashback from the Stone Eater, and it's just, she is
marvelous.
She's one of the best writers writing today across genres, period. And every single award she's won is well deserved, and she absolutely deserves to be read instead of some of the old dead white guys we still read.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Weirdly, that series is actually probably the best recommendation for those who are chasing The Witcher high.
Right.
Timelines creep. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a weird way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that Christmas is over, but sometimes your library holds don't come in on time. So I'm going to read this next. It's a Harlequin Intrigue by Juna Rushton.
Oh, yeah.
Alaskan Christmas Escape. So she is an elite hacker hiding in the Alaskan wilderness, and a CIA kill squad is after her. And so she's going to be saved by a mountain man, I think is what's happening.
I'm just like, is she trying to escape Christmas?
In Alaska.
So like, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a race through Alaska, which I'm here for.
Right.
But like, I'm not really sure that there's much Christmas happening, but it'll be cold. So, but look at that cover. Look how gorgeous she is.
She's beautiful. And I love her coat.
I do love her coat too. Yeah. So I'm going to read that because my library hold just came in,
No, absolutely. And Juna Rushton is fantastic.
Yeah. And with a death squad in pursuit, a fugitive needs the help of a wounded warrior. Like, to hit me, that's what I want to read. So that's it.
While they're escaping Alaskan Christmas.
Yes. So I'll report back if it was really Christmassy or if it was just like, it's December, Yeah.
Maybe you can put a couple of like ornament stickers in the corner.
Yeah. If you look on the cover, there's some holiday lights back here, but like
some mistletoe above her head. Can you like Photoshop some mistletoe in there?
Yeah.
So she is wearing a red coat. She's channeling Santa.
Yes, I'm really excited to read it. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. Weirdly, like the Harlequin series romances that I've picked up in the past few months have been the most like delightful, type perfect little books. So I know this will be exactly what it promises to be, and I'm here for it.
Speaking of that, I have the book you foisted on me at our book club.
Oh, let's talk about our book club project.
Oh my God.
Okay, so a few years ago, I went and bought a bunch of really bananas, but super fun sounding series romances, Harlequin, silhouettes, whatever I could find. The more bizarre, the better. The rule was I wouldn't make anyone read anything I wouldn't happily read myself. And I hoped they were all good. So I did that, and everybody got their books in December. And Miss Suleikha got a real humdinger of a book.
Well, this is Lord Weiland Takes a Wife, written in 1997 by Joy Reid. And it is, look at her. She's wearing a nice little wedding dress there. The wallpaper, I don't know. There's a lot going on. He's wearing
there's a lot going on. Buckskin.
And breeches. She had thought him an incorrigible wastrel, a man deserving of her contempt. Instead, Mary Grant found the new Lord Weiland to be fair, just, and handsome. Anyway, this should be interesting because I have not read like an old-timey white Regency in a while. And that zebra Regency, I don't think there's any horror but it should be interesting. And I have to do a oral report on it for the next book club meeting.
We have to do 1-minute book reports when we come back on our various books.
It's not fair. She homeschools us, basically.
I do. Just read books, y'all. Just read books.
It actually makes me think of, there was a Hallmark movie a couple years back called A December Bride, and her personality was that she wanted to be a December bride.
That's her whole personality?
Yeah, that's her personality. Because it keeps coming back. It's like, you always wanted to be a December bride. But her cousin steals her fiance in the first 5 minutes of the movie. And so then it's a couple of years later, they're married, but there's like estrangement in the family. And his friend, who she was mad at for not telling her that her cousin was the perfect woman for him, decides to be her fake fiance.
Oh,
but then at the end, she is a December bride.
Oh, what a weird life goal.
I know. Like, it's cold. Why do you want to dress up fancy in the cold?
Right? But also simultaneously, I know we're getting totally off track, but why do people want to be a June bride? Because honestly, June is so freaking hot. It's
right. Part of it for me, like when I was younger, was like 7 brides or 7 brothers. And they're like, oh, they say when you marry in June, you're a bride all your life. I mean, that's what I assumed it was about.
Okay. Listen, that's the message you took in.
Yeah. And then like the next part is like the bridegroom who marries in June is a sweetheart for his wife. So for me, I was like, well, obviously, like, June is the time to get married because you're going to be happy forever.
That makes sense.
Right.
I would just be like, you're sweating, you're wearing like pounds of makeup, whether you're in a church or a temple or wherever, and just everyone.
But if you get married in the winter, you might freeze your pieces off, like, I mean, so like somewhere in like September, October.
But
I don't want to get married in October because then it's right by my birthday. And then I like,
okay.
The whole like, well, here's a birthday anniversary present.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like that sucks.
And I'm an April birthday, and April's generally not a pretty time because like nothing's bloomed yet. So
I'm just saying,
when should one get married? This is the question.
Never. Actually, here's the thing: never get married. That's what it means.
But I know people like who, well, when my parents got married, they got married a week after Easter in April, and they had free flowers.
Oh, see,
because all the flowers were still out. So
nice.
That was a kind of perk for getting married in April.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course, it really depends on when Easter falls.
Yeah.
That's also true.
My parents got married in August in Calcutta in the 1960s, and it must have been really friggin' hot.
Oh my gosh, right?
I mean, I'm sure climate change wasn't quite as bad. Like, so it wasn't like 120 degrees, but I don't think it was pleasant.
Yeah.
Maybe solid 100, probably, right?
Solid 100.
Yeah.
They might have gotten married at night because of like, astrological stuff. I remember my mom said my grandpa was, because the brides are supposed to fast on their wedding day. Isn't that horrible? But he snuck her food.
Oh.
Grandpa snuck her some food.
That's love right there.
That's love. Oh my gosh. Anyway, back to other people's books.
Okay, so you got Lord Weiland Takes a Wife for our book club. I pulled this one, which I bought because I love the title so hard, because it is exactly Neurosurgeon's Christmas to Remember. So I've never read a Harlequin medical. And what I have to say here is if you're someone who loves like Grey's Anatomy, these are probably the books you want to read. Because he's a world-renowned neurosurgeon. She's PR for a great big hospital. And into it immediately comes this king who has to have a brain surgery, and they have to keep it hush-hush. So she and he, they end up forced proximity, sharing a 2-bedroom hotel suite while this is happening. And there's a lot of like, there's medical scenes and then there's romance scenes.
Nice.
So if you love like Grey's Anatomy, gets you some Harlequin medical romances.
Nice.
This was very cute. I liked them both.
There's no amnesia involved with the word remember in the title.
Oh, missed opportunity. But yeah, yeah. Good call. There is no amnesia. The king like genuinely needs brain surgery. So it's very like, it's a snappy read there. And of course they are both like, Harlequins tend to like lean toward glamour. These are people who, very high position, well paid. That's a fancy hotel. They go to a big social event at the end. So yeah, like this might be your specific catnip. Yeah. It was great. It's by Tracy Douglas. It was just a perfect little series romance. I like that. So I didn't get an old Regency for my book, the book that I drew.
I'm kind of jealous. Like
you want neurosurgeon?
I want the neurosurgeon. I have to through Lord Weiland and his tan breeches, and Mary, who might be a fortune hunter, apparently.
Oh, okay. I like a fortune hunter book.
I hope she's a fortune hunter. If it turns out she's not, I'm gonna be disappointed. I mean, like, girl,
she's just not. Yeah.
Right.
Like, what's the point of marrying the tan breeches if you're not going to get money with it?
Right.
In June or December or whenever. Like, if you're not fortune hunting, why bother getting married? And now we've heard why Suleikha is single.
We should have like a segment of this.
There's no fortunes for you to hunt.
Yeah, there's no fortunes for me to hunt. Also, it's a pandemic. Everyone's hiding their fortunes indoors.
We're spending our fortunes on masks. There's no.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're coming up on like the 40-minute mark, and I'm sure people are starting to flag.
Like, what is happening on the show?
What is happening on the show? So do we have any last recommendations or other things on our TBR that we want to dish before we sign off?
I have one more. Okay. So one more thing I read this month that was wonderful. Ooh, my sunbeam is annoying. Rebecca Weatherspoon's A Thorn in the Saddle, which is the third book in the Cowboys of California series. which is just a beautiful series and would make an amazing like television show. This is the third brother of the series. He's the very responsible one who's running the big, high business ranch. And the woman, Lily Grace, they were childhood friends. She has basically come back to Hideout after being sexually harassed at her high corporate job. And they fall, it's a romance. And they're both wonderful heroes. There's a lot of sort of inversion of things where like he is very sexually inexperienced and she is not. And so she teaches in some things. Nice. And it's got a lot of just loving family dynamics. And it wraps up throughout the other two books, you meet all the members of this family, not just you meet this whole ass family. And this really wraps them all up and leaves it at like a kind of series finale place where they're all going to be okay.
Oh, nice.
It was very comforting to read in these troubled times. Also, it's, there's animals, there's his dogs.
There's a dog on the cover.
There's a dog. Clementine is the dog. We love Clem. And then there's horses and it's ranch things and it's wonderful. So, yeah, I'm waiting for this to become a television series. Seriously.
I love when books sort of feel that way organically. Like you're like, I could see this on screen. And I know Rebecca has experience in Hollywood and working in the entertainment industry. So I'm sure, her mind was working exactly in that direction.
Right. Get that Hollywood money.
That's right.
Yeah.
After my triple threat is over, I've got an arc. I'm bragging. I've got an arc of Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley, which is about a football player turned baker who he owns a bakery. And I think it's a love story with a failed reality star, or like the evil girl on the reality show. Okay. And she ends up working at his bakery and things happen, I think. Anyway, I'm really excited because Jamie's really good at writing sports romance, and then you throw in like baking and I'm there.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds like how Eddie Jackson is all over the Food Network now. like I didn't even know he was an athlete, and then he's like all over the Food Network, and that's like it's like Eddie Jackson.
Nice. So that's perfect. Then it's perfect timing. Yeah. So that's coming out on June 21st, I think. So I've got it way in advance. Thank you for approving me for that, her publisher. Cackle.
Yeah.
I placed a pre-order the other day at Love Sweet Arrow for Hunt the Stars, which is by Jessie, I'm gonna probably butcher this, Mahalik.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I think, because I loved her Consortium Rebellion series. So I'm actually going to read the third book in the Consortium Rebellion, which is Chaos Reigning. Mm-hmm. Pretty sure that's the title. It's sitting here. And then when Hunt the Stars comes out in, I think, February, I'm going to read that because I apparently like space opera romance when she writes it. So when she writes it. So yes.
I feel like Eddie, like when I first heard of the Polaris
Rising. Yeah.
That was like Han Solo, Princess Leia. And I'm like, okay,
done.
You got me there. And I gobbled that one up, but I'm excited.
I liked that book, but I loved the second one in the series, which is a very bodyguard princess.
Oh yeah.
Kind of Aurora Blazing. I was like, oh, that's amazing. So
yeah. Basically, if you take, common romance tropes and put them anywhere, whether it's space or high fantasy, like it works in the hands of good authors. Like people always want to pigeonhole romance as like being all bodice rippers and all one note. And I'm like, no, romance can be anywhere and anything.
Literally anywhere. Space.
Like Middle Earth.
Middle Earth. Like, bakeries. Lots of bakeries.
The Mayan underworld. The Mayan underworld that's also a bakery.
Ooh. And a Regency horror reality show. In a Mayan bakery.
Yeah. Oh my
gosh. On that note,
thank you all for joining us for the January edition of Other People's Books. We're going to release you all from this curse now.
Run away.
Thank you for joining us. See you all
We will see you next month.
Bye.
Bye.